Eek. My first love, whom I haven't seen in 10 years. Now, just like in the movies, she's having a Marilyn Monroe moment. When you witness such a scene, you end up seeing things you shouldn't. Because of the guilt of having seen her in such a compromising position, I found myself in a situation where I had to agree to a rather outrageous request. My name is Jason. I'm a 28-year-old office worker. Graduated from college and landed a job at my current company. Working decently, earning a decent salary. All I wanted was a normal life, but things took a different turn when my chief took a special interest in me. Hey, Jason, get over here now, you slacker. The one summoning me again today is my manager, Robert. He's an old geezer, married with kids. Yes, what is it, sir? What do you mean, what is it? Why didn't you come when I called you immediately? Every time something doesn't go with his way, he uses me as his verbal punching bag. Even though the reason for his summons is often trivial, he'd give me a lecture just because I took a bit longer to respond. If I made a mistake, I would understand getting yelled at. But it's exhausting being constantly nitpicked and yelled at for the smallest of reasons. I'm exhausted. Another day comes to an end, enduring Robert's verbal abuse. Exhausted, I flopped onto my bed. And then, my cell phone buzzed with a notification. Looking at the screen, there's a message. I rarely get personal messages, so who could it be? The moment I saw the sender's name, my heart leapt. It's from Kathy, my childhood friend, my first love. I'd played with her since I could remember. Our houses were next to each other. Unlike my average family, Kathy came from an upper-class household. Her father is the CEO of an export-import company, and they lived in a huge house next door. We used to play together in the neighborhood, and she would occasionally invite me over. But as we entered middle school, things changed. Though we were childhood friends, we sometimes walked home together. Often, Kathy would talk honestly with me. Kathy was a long-haired girl with an authoritative aura, always taking charge. She was the center of the class, even a member of the student council. An all-rounder, she was also in the school band, the picture-perfect rich girl. But I knew the truth. Kathy was anything but a typical rich girl. She was blunt, casual, and quite a tomboy. I'm so done. I'm sick of pretending for my parents. Why do I have to choose activities based on their wishes? I'm not my dad's copy. On the way home as the sun began to set, she made remarks that would surely shock our classmates if they heard. The side of Kathy she shows only to me was just like any other ordinary girl. If you feel that way, you should stand up to them. It's the age for it, after all. If I do, they'll lock me up at home. I'd hate that. Kathy's parents were strict. Being the CEO and his wife, they were bound to be, but they put a lot of pressure on Kathy. As a result, her true nature was rebellious. An unseen rebellion, maybe that's the best way to put it. It seemed like her own way of rebelling. If she had to keep up the pretense both at home and outside, it's no wonder her personality became this way. So, I became her refuge where she could be her true self. Their friendship continued, even after we went to different high schools, after Kathy enrolled in an elite all-girls school. It wasn't much, just hanging out on weekends. But the nature of our outings changed a lot. Take that, all right. Turns out Kathy was always at the arcade near my place. And she was dolled up, in flashy clothes, a far cry from the refined lady image she portrayed at school. She said it was her way to blow off steam. She always seemed to enjoy video games anyway. But there were some rough-looking guys frequenting that arcade. Whenever one of them tried to hit on her, she'd use me as an excuse, calling me her boyfriend and bodyguard. Truth be told, I was never really the bodyguard type. Because Kathy, with her innate social skills, quickly befriended those rough guys, and would even thrash them in fighting games. Kathy's so darn good at these games. Your boyfriend sure isn't though. I'm not really into games, alright. Those guys liked Kathy and believed that I was her boyfriend, so they never made a move on her. Jason is just too weak to be any competition. You're good at studies, sports, and even video games. What are you, some kind of genius? On our way back from the arcade, I was always astounded by Kathy's skills. She'd joke, "I've been practicing in secret." We kept up this charade of pretending to be a couple. But the truth was, I had feelings for Kathy. But I never had the guts to confess, and I always felt I wasn't good enough for her. Moreover, I didn't want our current relationship to end. Throughout our high school years, we frequently went to the arcade on our dates. But after starting college, I stopped hearing from Kathy. I heard rumors. She got involved with a bad guy or had a fallout with her parents, but I knew all of those were lies. Kathy wouldn't do something so foolish. She probably moved to New York or found a boyfriend. Thinking all this, time flew by. Then, a message from Kathy after 10 long years. And her tone was just as casual as before. "Hey Jason, got a favor to ask, can you play my boyfriend again?" I chuckled at her and changed attitude and replied, after a 10-year silence, "You asked the same thing. Aren't there better candidates than me?" I kept my tone light, just like before. Soon, her reply came, "Your messages are still the same, comforting. I want to talk, can we meet up?" I was taken aback. A lot changes in a woman in 10 years. The Kathy in my mind was still on the cusp of girlhood. But at 28, she'd be a full-fledged woman. Could I act the same in front of her now? Though I worried. Long time no see, Jason. There was no need for concern. Sure, Kathy had turned into a beauty. She'd cut her hair to a medium length and dyed it brown, which was surprising. She looked stunning, with her flawless skin, elegant makeup, and a lovely dress, far from the school uniform look. Any guy would surely be smitten. But inside, she was still the Kathy I knew. Somehow, it felt incredibly nostalgic, and I was able to act the same way I used to without even thinking about it. "It's been a while. You haven't changed a bit, although your appearance has." Of course, I've changed after 10 years, but you, Jason, haven't changed at all. As we chatted, we entered a diner. The diner we used to frequent during our student days was no longer there, but this one had kept the same interior, making it feel oddly nostalgic. "So, why did you ask for something like that? You must have a boyfriend, right?" "No way. Everyone runs away once they get to know the real me." I can see that. You turn into a demon when you're angry." Ouch. I was about to say something when I got a swift kick under the table. "That's what I'm talking about," I thought, giving her a look, but Kathy pretended not to know what I meant. "My dad, he's been trying to set me up with someone without asking me, I guess because I hadn't gotten a boyfriend yet." "Well, your dad is a strict person." "That's right, and even though I've been saying no forever, he went ahead and set up a meeting for a potential match. Isn't that too much?" I got so mad that I blurted out, "I have a boyfriend, so don't do anything weird." Kathy's eyes were distant. While it might be a typical story for a young lady, it's definitely not okay to arrange a meeting without considering the person's feelings. It's no wonder Kathy was angry. But apparently, the other party wasn't deterred even after hearing she had a boyfriend. "He said he was better than my boyfriend, as if he could compare to you, Jason. So, please, just this once, just pretend to be my boyfriend one more time." Kathy said that, her head bowed, almost as if she were about to kneel on the table. But I couldn't answer her right away. This wasn't just some childhood play acting. If we mess this up, it could cause trouble for Kathy. "Let me think about it." So I said, Kathy looked a bit sad, but she smiled and said, "That makes sense. It's natural to want some time to think." Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Even though she smiled, it was awkward. I broke the tension by suggesting, "Shall we go outside?" and we both left the diner. But it was still awkward. What should I do? I was thinking about it while we walked. Aha! Whoa! Suddenly, her dress blew up. Like Marilyn Monroe's iconic scene. She held her skirt down with all her might. It was like something out of a movie. Looking closer, I noticed she was standing over an air vent. She must have unknowingly walked over it, and unfortunately, the wind blew through. The wind stopped, and her skirt returned to normal. But she was glaring at me with an angry look. "You saw it, didn't you?" "I didn't see." "Why are you talking like that?" "I didn't see. Seriously. I wasn't thinking you were wearing white." "You did see." I ended up digging my own grave and got hit by Kathy. A week later, I ended up agreeing to play the role of Kathy's boyfriend. That was because after the incident, Kathy puffed up her cheeks and told me, "You have to take responsibility for seeing," and I gave in. Well, it can't be helped that I saw, even if it was an accident. Kathy said, "You don't have to think it's a bother, let's just do it casually, like before." She told me that. She did say it, but it's not that simple. Man, I cursed my bad luck. I mean, what is Jason here? Turns out, my potential date was none other than the son of my annoying manager, Robert, named Derek. And naturally, Derek's dad, Robert, was there too. I had a bad feeling about this. I am dating Kathy. When I confidently said that, Robert, even before sitting down, pointed at me and blurted out, "What? A loser like you? Are you blackmailing Kathy or something? She deserves better. Everyone at the company knows you're useless. You're just a scumbag who can't vent his frustrations without taking it out on others." I wanted to retort that he was the one being described, but I held back. I was amazed he could say such things before our date even started. Kathy looked taken aback. Sadly, it seemed Robert's domineering attitude wasn't just professional, Derek had inherited it. As soon as the day began, Derek wouldn't let me get a word in edgewise and started boasting about his accomplishments without being asked. Granted, on paper, he seemed impressive, but in between his boasts, he'd look down on me and say in tune with his father, "I can make you happier than he can. I bet you've had a hard time with a guy like that. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything." When he said that, even Kathy's father, Tom, was taken aback. They may want to put me down and raise their stock, but they are just sinking, and fast. They don't even realize how fast they are plummeting, like they are diving through the earth and into outer space. With Robert and Derek laughing and berating me, I was trying to figure out my next move. I was thinking hard, but Kathy beat me to the punch. "What is your problem? I can't stand you insulting the man I love, and stop promising happiness when you don't even know me." Watching Kathy like this, Derek nonchalantly replied, "No matter who you truly are, I'll still love you." Upon hearing this, Kathy said, "Then, I'll show you the real me. Follow me." She stood up and led us to a place. It was an arcade, a place we used to frequent. I won't date someone who's worse at games than me. Arcade. I love video games. It's a hobby I've hidden even from my dad. Only Jason knows. Seeing that, Kathy stormed into the arcade. I figured she's done hiding her true self from her dad, so I quickly explained that I've been going to the arcade with Kathy since forever. Tom gave me a cold stare, but he didn't say anything. And where she took us was a section filled with fighting games. If you're really that great, Derek, you should be able to win, right? I mean, how are games useful in real life? Excuse me, don't belittle gaming, it's fun. A life without shared hobbies would be so boring. Kathy went off on him and we ended up competing in a three-way score challenge. But it wasn't a fighting game, it was a shooting game. like a target practice. The only game where I could beat Kathy. Needless to say, I won. Derek, frustrated, said, "This wasn't a deal. I don't want to marry a rough girl like this," and ran off. Robert glared at me and muttered, "You'll pay for this," before leaving. And they left. Left behind were me, Kathy, and her father. Tom yelled, wasting time on such frivolous games. Naturally, he was angry. But Kathy shot back, "You always decide everything for me. And when I stand up to you, you just yell without listening. No wonder I want to escape into gaming." As I tried to mediate, Tom said, "This is probably why you can't find a wife." I lost my temper and snapped back. "I'll marry Kathy, so stop judging her based on her personality. Why are you always criticizing your own child? Kathy isn't a copy of you." Both were taken aback. Kathy, with wide eyes, whispered, "That was my line. Right, it's not a copy of the parent." This is something Kathy once said. I bet they didn't expect to hear such complaints. Tom remained silent. Maybe it hit too close to home. Feeling awkward, I said, "Anyway, please talk it out, parent and child," and ended the meeting. Did I go a bit overboard? With that thought, I went to work the next day. But my desk was gone. Instead, there was a note about a personal transfer. I was informed that I was being relocated to the middle of nowhere, something like rural Nebraska. Panicking, I asked Robert, "What's going on here?" But he just said, "Can't you see? We don't need incompetence." That was the end of that conversation. Apparently, someone reported a major mistake someone else had made, as if I was the one responsible. They seemed pretty ticked off about the incident the day before. It was sheer retaliation. "You should just keep quiet down at the bottom. Who do you think you are, challenging us?" And that's how I ended up being shipped off to rural Nebraska. Voices like mine, just a regular employee, never get heard. Now, I have to move ASAP, and I'm swamped with packing. At that time, I received a call from Kathy asking me to come over to her place. I told her I was busy with a move, but she even offered to help with my relocation. I realized I had spoken out of turn, and honestly, I wanted to apologize to Tom. When I visited her home, for some reason, Tom was bowing deeply in apology to me. "I'm sorry. We put you through so much. Kathy told me you've been acting as her boyfriend and have been supporting her all this time." What? I'm a fool. Thanks to you, I realized. Just because I can do something doesn't mean Kathy can, and what I can't do, Kathy might very well be able to. Apparently, after that matchmaking meeting, Kathy had a heart-to-heart talk with her father. Seeing sides of his daughter he hadn't known existed made him realize how little he'd been observing her. Moreover, Kathy got to hear Tom's true feelings. Turns out, Kathy's parents had a kind of arranged marriage, much like the older generation in the U.S. Daniel had initially been engaged to a woman he fell in love with, but she cheated on him, leaving a deep scar. Later, through an arranged setup, he met Kathy's mother and built the happy family they have now. That's why Tom thought an arranged marriage isn't bad, and I found more happiness in that than in a love marriage. Kathy said she had a boyfriend, but what if she ended up abandoned like me? I don't want that for her. Such fears made him insist on choosing a husband for his dear daughter through matchmaking. While that's not something to be praised, at the core of Tom's actions was a strong desire to protect his daughter. "I hope you'll continue to be by my daughter's side. You're the only one who truly sees her." For the first time, I felt acknowledged by Kathy's family. But I'm being relocated to Nebraska soon. When I told Kathy, she looked shocked and seemed to understand the situation. "It's not to atone, but if you're open to it, how about working for us?" "Excuse me." "Exactly. Instead of staying at a company with such a terrible boss, why not come to ours?" I wondered if it was all right to think like that, but honestly, I had been considering switching jobs. If I'm going to be demoted anyway, maybe it's all right to just quit. Thinking like that, I surprisingly said, in that case, I appreciate the offer, and switched jobs. Having worked in sales for a long time, I got along at the new company more than I expected, but that's a story for another day. Later on, I heard that Robert got demoted in my place, but I don't really care about that anymore. By the way, we officially started dating. Well, after all, I had declared my intentions, even saying I'd marry her. It's the first time we've walked together as a couple. True that. Doesn't feel much different, though. You always say stuff like that. Saying that, Kathy accompanied me on my way home. For the first time since becoming a couple, we walked hand in hand. I wished we could have done this sooner. If I had been braver, maybe I wouldn't have had to pretend to be her boyfriend. So, I won't hesitate anymore. Hey, Kathy. What? I love you. It's about time you told me. Both of us said that and walked hand in hand, laughing together.